tonight we're offering a very special town hall meeting, Disaster Preparedness, Building Community Resilience. This, as you can tell, is a meeting format. We hope that you will leave your cameras on and stay with us. It's a nice way to do it. Since this is a Zoom meeting format, we have the chat button tonight, and my partner, Bev Hartman, will be putting relevant links and resources in the chat, so do look for that, along with any of your questions or comments. So if you do have questions, and we will have a Q&A period at the end of this meeting, please do put them in the chat, along with any comments for us or our presenters. Let's get started. Again, the format is tonight, we will have two keynote presenters, Barbara Wood, who is a volunteer with the American Red Cross, and Sandra Firpo, who's an emergency services specialist with San Mateo County Fire Department. At the end, we will let you know a little bit more about our video library. This event is being recorded and will be available on the Parent Venture Video Library, a free resource offered through the Sequoia Healthcare District in partnership with the Boys and Girls Club. And now I'm going to introduce you to Pamela Kurtzman, who's the CEO of Sequoia Healthcare District. Take it away, Pamela.
Thank you, Charlene. And thanks to all of you for tuning in and taking this really important step in keeping yourselves and your family safe and well in the event of a disaster. As Charlene stated, I'm Pamela Kurtzman, CEO of Sequoia Healthcare District. And by bringing you this event tonight, it's our goal that you'll come away with some practical knowledge about hazards and emergencies that may affect you in this area, and that you'll put together an emergency plan and a disaster supply kit, and that you'll practice and maintain your plans. But just quickly, for those of you who may not be familiar with the healthcare district, we are a government entity. We're really a special district, like a water district or a fire district, and our mandate is to support the health of our over 230,000 district residents in southern San Mateo County. And we do this by aligning with other government agencies, with nonprofits, and through our own signature programs. We have a 5-member board of directors who are publicly elected by our district residents, and an annual budget of just over $14 million. It is our goal and our intention to put 100% of those dollars back out into the community. There's so much to learn about Sequoia Healthcare District, details about our investments. Visit us on our website at www.seq.hd.org. I think Bev will put that into the chat. And then also learn about how to connect with us on social media through our website. I mentioned a supply kit earlier. At the end of our presentation tonight, we will be raffling off 3 emergency backpacks generously donated by the Red Cross. And the thing is, you need to be present to win. So you're going to want to stick around. I think you're going to want to stick around anyway, because we have fabulous presenters who are providing us with some really imperative information that you're not going to want to miss. First, we're going to hear from Barbara Wood, a San Mateo County resident and a Red Cross volunteer, and Sandra Firpo, emergency services specialist with the San Mateo Consolidated Fire Department. I'm first going to give you a little background on Barbara, our first speaker. So Barbara Wood is a 30-year resident of San Mateo County who retired several years ago after 27 years as a reporter for the Almanac newspaper and website. She's been a Red Cross volunteer for 15 years and has gone on 28 national disaster assignments in at least 10 states. She has served in many capacities in the Red Cross, including working in evacuation shelters, helping those affected by a disaster find resources and plan their recovery, providing food, water, and other supplies. In a disaster, she goes out to the field to report and document damage caused by the disaster and telling the Red Cross story as part of the public affairs team she's doing for us tonight. Recently, Barbara responded to several major California fires. She's currently stationed at the Caldor Fire Territory. She can tell you a little bit about that, including the Camp Fire that destroyed Paradise in 2018. She lives in Woodside, in an area that actually could be evacuated at some point. Next, I'll tell you about Sandra. Sandra Firpo is an emergency services specialist with the San Mateo Consolidated Fire Department. She works in the offices of emergency services, focused mostly on public education, managing the community emergencies response team, that CERT program we often hear about. And she assists with the development of emergency plans for the cities served by San Mateo County Fire, social media messaging, and providing support to fire crews during the larger incidences. Prior to entering emergency services, Sandra was in the news and talk broadcasting area, working as an assignment editor, producer, and a writer. She did that for major news talk radio station locally. Sandra is a Bay Area native, and she's bilingual, having learned Spanish while on a cattle ranch in Argentina during part of her childhood. Making community preparedness a routine part of one's life rather than a chore or a major expense is one of Sandra's life goals. Without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Barbara to kick off tonight's presentation.
Hi, everybody. I'm actually speaking to you here from a room that I kind of shanghaied in a Red Cross shelter that's open in the Rolling Hills Church in El Dorado Hills outside Sacramento. The Red Cross has, I don't even know how many shelters open right now because it's changing so rapidly. We just opened a whole bunch of new ones up for the people who had to evacuate from South Lake Tahoe. So I've been here since Sunday helping with that. But I'm going to give you a presentation tonight that I hope will help you get ready if you have to do something like this. So please forgive me. I'm going to read my presentation because I haven't had any time to try to memorize it, but I hope you get some good information about it. So thank you for joining this. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how you can get yourself and your family ready for a disaster. And I'm going to share with you some things that I've learned in the years that I've been responding for the Red Cross, both locally and across our country. As I'm sure that you all know, disasters do happen, and recently they've been happening more often. But what we need to remember, and maybe why you signed up for this discussion, is because sometimes they happen to us. I will never forget the time, which was on my very first Red Cross deployment, which was in 2008. I was helping to deliver food and cleanup supplies to the residents of Galveston Island in Texas. And the island had been under 8 feet of water after Hurricane Ike, so people were cleaning up. And a man came out to our delivery vehicle that we were handing out food from, and he showed me his Red Cross badge, and he had tears in his eyes, and he said, I never thought I'd be accepting help from the Red Cross, because he was a Red Cross volunteer. And I just said to him, hey, don't worry about it. I'm sure one day you'll show up in California to help us out after we have a big disaster. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's still a Red Cross volunteer all these years later, that he's been here recently helping us take care of the wildfire evacuees. I've met people from all over the country here in the past few days, some of whom are having their own disasters back home. So it's really heartening to see that happen. So right now, we have more than 1,000 Red Cross workers hard at work responding to wildfires in California, flooding in Tennessee, a big hurricane you may have heard about on the Gulf Coast, and we're even providing humanitarian aid to refugees from Afghanistan. We supply food, shelter, emergency supplies, health services, mental health services, and spiritual care to thousands of people. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you the story of someone who I met a few years ago, where I was volunteering in a Red Cross shelter, an evacuation shelter after the Camp Fire, in which the community of Paradise and other areas were destroyed. So the story is about Joe Avila. He was a 65-year-old widower living in an apartment complex for seniors in Paradise on November 8th, 2018, when disaster struck in the form of the Camp Fire. which was an out of control wildfire that wiped out most of his community. Joe escaped with only his life, the clothes on his back, and the walker that he needed to get around. So I met Joe, who was a music teacher and a theology student, in a Red Cross shelter in the Oroville Nazarene Church, where he was living while he tried to figure out what he was going to do next. Joe told me the story of what had happened to him early that morning. He said the power had gone out and he had no clue that anything was amiss until he saw a bright light outside, and he looked through his apartment door to see that the building next door, just 30 feet away, was on fire. Another building in his senior complex of about 100 apartments was also on fire, he said. So without any shoes or socks on, Joe grabbed his walker and headed out the door. When he looked up, he saw the roof of his complex was on fire. He said trees were bursting into flames, there were embers flying and windows blowing out. He heard noises that sounded like bullets exploding, Joe told me. He hid behind a dumpster when the wind worsened the firestorm. Apartments started exploding behind him, and his walker went flying across the parking lot. Then the rubber lid to the dumpster he was crouching behind caught fire. Joe crawled across the parking lot to get his walker, and the smoke by then was so thick that he couldn't see the street in front of his apartment complex. And Joe told me he didn't have time to be afraid. I just knew I had to get out of there, he told me. I knew I had to go to keep moving. So Joe said he got his walker back and he made it to the street, but his knees were bloodied. And a police car stopped and the officers told him to jump in. He told me that he thought that they all were sort of in shock because they didn't actually say too much to him. They just told him to get in. So he got in. They picked up one other man who they ran across who was escaping from the fire, and the officers drove them to the evacuation shelter that had been set up at the Nazarene Church in Oroville. So in Joe's case, there wasn't any advance warning of the fire and no time to prepare. He was on his own until police officers rescued him. I think we've learned a few things about trying to be a little bit more proactive about evacuating people when we think there's going to be a fire. But you know, it's true that even though there are a lot of organizations, that includes the Red Cross, and in our county, San Mateo County's Office of Emergency Services, that devote a lot of their time to planning how they're going to respond to disasters and how to take care of the community in a disaster. But sometimes outside help is just not going to be immediately available, especially right after a disaster occurs. So if you prepare yourself in advance, you'll be ready to help yourself and your family and your community in a disaster. So what I'm going to do to help you envision a little bit about that is I'm going to share with you the story of how one of our Red Cross employees, Catherine Hecht, has prepared herself and her family for a wildfire. Catherine, along with her husband, her dog, 2 cats, and 4 chickens, since 2018 has twice evacuated from her home on the outskirts of Cloverdale, that's in a development nestled into the foothills at the north end of Sonoma County. As many of us do, her family lives in what is called the wildland urban interface, where homes and streets and neat gardens sit near hills covered with flammable vegetation. So Catherine told me that the day that her family moved into their new home, there was actually a fire in the nearby hills. That fire didn't result in an evacuation, but a little less than a year later, on October 8th, 2017, the Tubbs fire struck the North Bay with little warning. At 3:45 a.m., the sheriff drove by with a loudspeaker warning the residents to flee. Catherine had been awoken moments earlier by a neighbor who overrode the do not disturb cell phone setting on her phone by calling repeatedly. So with only minutes to get out, Catherine and her husband didn't have time to take anything but the clothes on their backs and their animals. A friend who lived in a safe area of Cloverdale took in Hecht, her husband, the 75-pound dog, 2 cats, and 4 chickens. And that is a good kind of friend to have. So by the time Catherine and her family had to evacuate again in the October 2019 Kincaid Fire, a few things had changed, including that Catherine was now working for the Red Cross. And she and her neighbors were way more prepared, having gone through it once. So that previous evacuation and also the devastation that we had all seen from other fires in California taught Catherine that she had to go way beyond having water and food in the house. We had to be prepared to evacuate this neighborhood on foot, Catherine told me. She put wire cutters in her go bag in case she needs to get through a fence. And she has a long straw that could be used to breathe if she ends up having to immerse herself in the water of a nearby pond. That's pretty much a last resort step that she's taken. Catherine told me she keeps a list of what's in her go bag. So even if she's panicked, she knows just what is inside. She says she's also prepared for the power to go out. She has a stash of blankets, shelf-stable food and water, and some lanterns. We have a fireproof safe in our house that we put our marriage license and birth certificates in, Hecht says. The documents are in a fireproof envelope that she transfers from the safe to the go bag when an evacuation warning is issued. I thought this sounded so brilliant. I looked on Amazon and it looks like any of us can order a fireproof envelope. So that's a good thing to do. So Catherine advises people that they look at what they take for granted and just try to go a step beyond that. So today, near her front door, when she's got a evacuation warning or even a red flag alert, which says that we have weather that could mean that we are more likely to have a fire, Catherine stashes pet carriers and her go bag that includes clothing, important papers, emergency supplies, dog and cat food, and toiletries. She has planned 2 driving routes out of her neighborhood and a foot route in case those 2 are blocked. She subscribes to her county's emergency notification system. In her county, it's Nixle. She has the Red Cross emergency app on her phone, and she follows local sources of emergency information on Twitter. She and her husband have agreed on 2 emergency meeting points in case their first one is unavailable. So Catherine has used some advice from the Red Cross and also her experience to help her family be prepared. And you can do the same thing. I'm not going to go into this in great detail, but the Red Cross tries to make it simple. And there's 3 basic things that we recommend. Get a kit. This is supplies you need at home or you can easily carry with you if you have to evacuate when disaster strikes. Make a plan. So you need to think about, write down, and share with your family and loved ones the steps you will take to respond to specific types of disasters. And you need to be informed. You need to figure out how you will get information if a disaster occurs and what sources of information are available in your community. So I don't want to try to tell you exactly what you should put in your kit because it's probably not going to stick anyway, but I'll give you some general information, and there are online resources that have more specifics. But you need to remember that when a disaster strikes in your community, things such as food, water, electricity, medical facilities, or even drugstores or ATMs just might not be working. So we recommend you put together 2 kits of supplies. In one kit, you should put everything that you'll need to stay at home for at least 3 days. And as you are able, you might want to add to this kit so it's not overwhelming to start with, and add to it so you end up with enough supplies in that kit to last for 2 weeks. And that's for a disaster such as an earthquake in which we ended up, having to stay in our homes. and needing to kind of be on our own. The other kit, which a lot of people call a go bag, should be a lightweight, smaller version that you can take with you if you have to leave your home quickly. It should contain everything that you would need to be on your own for 3 days. Based on the needs of the members of your household, this could be one kit for the entire household or separate kits for each members. And please don't forget about your pets. I know if you have pets, you won't forget about them anyway. So I live in a place that could easily be affected by a wildfire. And so I went on the Red Cross website and looked at their list, and then I modified it for what I might need in my own go bag, which you'll see here on the screen. And because my husband works from home and has important files on our computers, every few months he backs up our computers onto a hard disk, and he brings the disk to a safe deposit box that we have in our local bank. So we've also tried to scan important papers and family photos, so we'll have copies of them available if we have to leave really quickly. But I have to tell you that because I'm often gone from home during a time when my husband might have to evacuate, responding to fires in other places, that I've told him that what is really important is that he should just grab our little dog, get in the car and go, which is what we sometimes have to do. Everyone will need to customize their kit to fit their own needs. If you have children, you might want to ask them if there's something small that's special to them that you can put in the go bag. Like that could be a dangerous question if they want to bring, their entire toy box or whatever, but you could probably negotiate with them. Some other supplies that you could add are a whistle. We're all going to need masks for COVID, and they're really helpful for smoke. Those N95 masks are doing dual duty nowadays. You might need matches, rain gear. It's hard to think about that right now. Towels, work gloves, tools and supplies for securing your home, like gas cutoffs and water valves, a hat and sturdy shoes, plastic sheeting to keep things dry or a tarp, duct tape. I always have duct tape. Scissors, household bleach, blankets or sleeping bags are always good to have around, and sunscreen or insect repellent. So once you have a kit, the Red Cross advises that you make a plan. You need to think about how you would get out of your neighborhood if the roads are blocked, and where you would go once you've gotten out. So my husband and I have asked our son, who lives not too far away, but in an area that's unlikely to have a wildfire, if we can stay with him if we have to evacuate. And he said yes, so that's our plan. If you have a pet, you should realize that sometimes the partners we work with do not allow pets in shelters. So if this is something that you can't live with, you need to think about who could take care of your pet for you, find pet-friendly motels that are outside the area that would probably need to be evacuated, or find a friend or family member who is willing to host you for at least a short time until you figure out what you can do next. Your plan should also include at least 2 locations where family members will meet if you are separated when the disaster strikes. And you should also plan what you will do if you are advised to shelter in place. Where in your home could be the safest and what emergency equipment you'll need. This could be for something like a hazardous material spill, or even a possible shooter someplace in your neighborhood. I always make sure that all of my electronics are charged when we have a red flag warning, because there's increased fire danger and there's also increased danger that the power could go out. So the third leg of the Red Cross preparation plan is to be informed. So if you live in San Mateo County, you should be signed up for the SMC alerts. They'll come to your cell phone and your email. And your own community may also have a special way of communicating with residents in an emergency. Please figure out what that is and sign up for it. Some parts of the county, including the areas covered by the Menlo Park Fire Protection District, have sirens and public address systems to let residents know about emergencies. So even if the power goes out in those areas and phones aren't working, you can still hear them telling you what's going to go on. They have a portable public address system too, and I think a lot of the police departments do. You should know what sources of information are available about disasters. So I listen to KQED, and even though I don't normally go on Twitter, I have a list of Twitter accounts that include emergency information. I also am a little bit obsessive about checking the weather, and I always go to the National Weather Service, which is weather.gov, for weather updates, and because I find them to be the most accurate, and I read their forecast discussions as well. There's a little link down on the bottom left of the page that says forecast discussion, and I read those because they talk about, you know, what might happen next. I put the Red Cross emergency app on my phone after I was sent to Tennessee in March 2020 after tornadoes had demolished several neighborhoods, because while I was there, residents told me the Red Cross app had warned them of the tornado before they got a warning on the local television or the local emergency warning system. So that impressed me. If you're traveling in an area where there could be a disaster, it's a good thing to think about what you do if you had to evacuate. I actually had to evacuate from a hotel room in Santa Rosa in the middle of the night in 2019. I was there for the Red Cross, but even though I was alone, I didn't feel panicked because I'd been helping to set up an evacuation center. So I knew where I'd go. And I will admit that I forgot my bag full of dirty clothes and my computer charger. And so I had to go back to the motel a few days later when I could get through and pick them up. So thank you so much. That is the end of my presentation for tonight.
Thank you so much, Barbara. You have given us so much to think about. I don't know about everybody else, but I'm like, really got to get going, got to get those apps, got to get those bags packed. For those of you who are parents, I want to mention that Bev has been posting in the chat some links from the San Mateo County Office of Education about what the school's disaster plans are in English and Spanish. So do check that out if you're interested in what the school's emergency plan is. Now we are going to turn to Sandra Firpo. Sandra, take it away.
Thank you so much. And thank you to Barbara. I really want to acknowledge the work being done by people like Barbara, thousands of Red Cross volunteers and NGO, non-governmental organizations throughout the country, throughout all these disasters that we seem to be going through. And that includes the pandemic as well, because that certainly is no less a disaster and an ongoing one throughout the country and throughout the world. So folks like Barbara and CERT volunteers and countless volunteers throughout the country are doing amazing work. It is not glamorous. It sounds like it's glamorous to be deployed, but it is not. It is a lot of hard work and a lot of dedication and training on the part of the people who go, whether they're professional responders or volunteers. So if there's something that you're interested in and driven to do, and you think that's something you are interested in, please go through the training in advance. Because you cannot be called if you are not trained. We want to bring people who are prepared into those situations. Sometime back in my previous, one of my previous lives, I was a lifeguard. And one of the first things they taught us in training for lifeguarding was the last thing we wanted to do was get in the water. If someone is flailing and asking for help, they are remarkably strong, and we could very easily get pulled down by them, even if we were the strongest swimmer. So the idea was not to be part of the problem, but part of the solution, and come up with ways to assist so that we are maintaining our safety first. So that is very important, your safety first. Even on airplanes, we're told to put our if the masks come down, to put our mask on first and then assist others. So your safety is paramount. And when we're talking with training for CERT or training any of our professional responders, making sure you're safe so that you can take care of others is crucial and being part of the solution. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that you can see that. There we go. And so we're a slightly more complex than the Red Cross with 5 steps instead of 3. But essentially very much the same as Barbara was pointing out. Getting alerts is truly important, making a plan, having a go bag, having a stay kit or your primary kit at home, and being able to help friends and neighbors. So let's talk a little bit about those alerts that Barbara had touched on. Every county has one. And in San Mateo County, it's SMC Alert. And this is how you register for that. It's something you have to register for. And you would get various types of alerts. And you can customize this to the cities in which you live, where your kids go to school, if you have family. So in my case, for example, I used to work in San Francisco. So I had San Francisco's alert. I live in San Mateo County, so I have SMC alerts. And then I could choose the different cities. My mom lives in Pacifica, for example, or my husband works in San Bruno. So I wanted to make sure those cities were specifically selected. And these are there's a various types of alerts that you would get. And this is a resource, a tool, so that you can get information that could make you more aware of things that are going on, things to avoid, and of course, help you make the best decision for your family at any given time. The other option is something that's new. This is called Zone Haven. And pretty soon you're going to start to see an ad campaign or campaigns called Know Your Zone. And I'm giving you a preview of this early. This is something that's already in place here in San Mateo County. And the great thing about this is that, so we've been watching the very scary evacuation of South Lake Tahoe. And when they were evacuating and people were receiving alerts about evacuations, it would say something like, everybody northeast of Main Street and southwest of Grand Street has to evacuate. Well, I don't know, but I'm not going to know what my northeast or my southwest is on any given time. But what they've done with this is they are making it so that everyone, law enforcement, fire, public works, cities, and residents are using the same maps and the same language. So they've divided up San Mateo County into small zones. And now they can say, okay, we need San Mateo zone 0014 to shelter in place. And we need San Mateo zone 0015 and 16 to evacuate. By knowing your zone, you know immediately whether you are included or not, whether you're affected or not. So I highly recommend that you know your zone, and that will work very well in conjunction with SMC Alert. So that's the website there, but I'll be giving you that website again on how to look up your zone. And this piece of paper, if you will, you can print that out from Know Your Zone. Zone Haven has that and a lot of other information regarding preparedness, but you can print this out right in that white spot, your zone number, the complete number, and post it on your refrigerator, post the one at work. You should know your zone for work, for school, for anywhere that you hang out, you should know your zone. So the go bag. Now there's something that we touched on before with Barbara and everyone's talking about. You may have heard in the news, for example, last week, San Jose had a gas main break. One of the construction, I'm sorry, I'm hearing someone else. One of the construction teams that was working out in San Jose busted accidentally through a gas main line, and a neighborhood had to be evacuated, over 300 homes. But this is not an evacuation that got a warning. This was knock on the door, everybody leave, everybody leave. Most people, of course, left immediately and presumed, as we all did, they'd be back in their homes in a few hours. That wasn't the case. They were out of their homes for 2 days. And there was always the risk that an explosion could happen. So your home may be destroyed by this. So if you had a go bag and everybody grabbed their go bag on the way out, now you've got more to be comfortable with, of course, but to help you restart and recover. So some things to think about. A go bag is something that you can grab and go. It needs to be light enough for each person to carry. So if you have, your 6-year-old, they can have their own go bag, so long as they can carry it. And that's one way of deciding what to bring and what not to bring, of course. But the idea is for you to be comfortable and able to function for 3 days outside of your home. Your main kit, the one that you're building at home, can obviously be bigger and much more complex. This is something that you need to be able to carry with you. One of the things that I wanted to mention, and that Barbara touched on, is that, of course, when there's a disaster that's regional and we're opening shelters, we're feeding and sheltering and taking care of as many needs for as many people as possible. But in those first few days, options are going to be very limited. So if you have any dietary restrictions at all, allergies or dietary needs, then there's no guarantee there's going to be that variety of food in the first few days. So it's very important that you have in your go bag some bars, some high calorie bars of something that you can eat to tide you over. Your medications, of course, something to entertain you, because in a disaster, it's always hurry, 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 right? Panic, panic, panic. But then there's those slow down times where you're waiting for news and waiting for information. And it goes by much more easily if you have a book to read or a game to play or a deck of cards or your sewing project, whatever it is that you can put in your go bag that you can bring with you to entertain you during that downtime that will exist. Masks, we should have masks everywhere now, in your glove compartment of the car, in your go bag, wherever it may be. And then, of course, ways to charge your devices, some backup chargers. Don't assume you're going to remember to take the charger with you. This is a great list of resources that I've compiled on this slide. There's a lot of good information here. And again, these are all tools that will help you make decisions at the time that are right for you and your family. What works for your neighbor may not necessarily work for you. Barbara touched on customizing your go bag. Absolutely. Now, September, next month, just tomorrow, is National Preparedness Month. And there'll be a lot of items, you'll see them on sale, and backpacks and supply kits. Those are fantastic. So if you want to buy one of those, that's great. But don't just buy the bag and then throw it in your closet and go, I'm prepared. Make sure you open it up. Open everything that's in there. Know what's in there, and then customize it. I wear prescription eyeglasses. When I get new eyeglasses, I take my old pair, put them in the case, and put that in my go bag. If you use a hearing aid or have anything that requires batteries or any special equipment, you want to make sure that there's an extra version in that go bag. And like I said, any dietary needs and that sort of thing. So please go to SMC Alert and register for that. Check out Zonehaven, the myzone.zonehaven.com. One thing that I was going to touch on is the out-of-state contact. Communications is always something that is very difficult and very trying in any emergency, right? Because everyone's on their cell phones and the bandwidth goes to zero. But long distance calls have better odds of getting through. So for example, with my family, I have a brother who lives in Arizona. Everyone in my family knows, regardless of where they are, if there's an emergency, a disaster, and phone lines are jammed, call my brother in Arizona, and he keeps track of who called and where they are and what they're doing. You just do a quick update with him, and then I can check in on him every couple of hours and get an update as to who else he's heard from. Because believe me, one of the things that really impacts us in emergency is the worry that we have for our loved ones. So not being able to reach them is going to be a great frustration, but having someone be able to say, hey, yes, I heard from your daughter, or yes, I heard from your cousin, and they're fine, and this is their plan. Now you have some information, you know how they are, you know what their situation is. You can calm down a little bit and focus on what you need to do next. The Disaster Ready Guide, that first slide that I showed with all the 5 steps, that's something that is in the disaster ready guide, and it's something that helps, has a lot of good information in terms of helping you develop a family plan and things to remember. It's very, very easy to follow. It's in various languages, and I've made it available to Sequoia Healthcare to make available to you as well. So it does come in various languages and is a very, very handy guide to have. And then, of course, social media. We're all on social media, but make sure that among those things that you follow are reliable local resources like your local fire department, your local police department, CERT, and the county. And that pretty much covers most of everything I had to say, with the exception that, as I just mentioned, September next month is National Preparedness Month. And on our website there, you will have the opportunity to see a survey. If you live in one of our jurisdictional cities, Belmont, Foster City, or San Mateo, we're asking folks to take a survey. Another thing that we're making available, and that's for everyone, regardless of where you live, is in September, on September 21st, we're offering a free Get Ready class. That'll be on Zoom. It's an expanded version of everything you've heard tonight, plus more. It's a basic preparedness class. It lasts 2 hours on Zoom. And if you want to go to the Eventbrite site there, you can register for that free preparedness class, which is available now. And that'll be held on September 21st, and I hope you'll join me for that. If you have any other questions for me, certainly I'll be able to answer some of them tonight, but always you can reach me at my email address there, which is theprepare@smcfire.org. Thank you so much for your attention and for all your efforts at getting better prepared.
Well, thank you, Sandra Firpo and Barbara Wood, for that incredible content. This was truly a remarkable presentation. And for those of you who joined late, I want you to know that this program has been video recorded and will be available on the Parent Education Series YouTube video library. It's a free resource for all of you. And we partner with the Boys and Girls Club, supported by the Sequoia Healthcare District, to make those videos available. This is one you're going to want to watch again for sure. Now we have a few questions before we turn to our finale raffle, which is actually giving away some go bags from the Red Cross. So please stay with us for the next few minutes because you have to be present to win, right, Jenny and Pamela? So if you have questions, please do type them into the chat and we will ask them of Sandra and Barbara. I have a couple to get us started that have come in earlier, okay? Are you ready, Sandra and Barbara? Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, here's a good one. In the face of so many national and international disasters, how can we stay prepared without becoming overwhelmed?
If you want me to go first, I actually think that being prepared helps you to not be overwhelmed. If you know, I mean, it's so easy to get frustrated, especially, you know, I don't watch TV news, despite the fact that I was a reporter, because on TV news, you always see photos of the worst of everything that happened. If you're there on the ground, it usually doesn't look that bad. Yes, there's some really bad things. So it's easy to get overwhelmed. But what you need to do is just make sure you're taking care of yourself, you're prepared, and then if it doesn't happen to you, you can help other people. So that's my suggestion.
That is a
I
great.
agree with Barbara.
Go ahead, Sandra, I'm sorry.
No, I agree with Barbara that having some measure of preparedness empowers you, gives you that sense of confidence, which I think really lowers, as I said, lowers the temperature, keep that stress level down. The same with our kids. We want to empower them with things that they can do. They are part of the team, and we are a team when it comes to these things. Sometimes, and most likely, when disaster hits, we're not all going to be sitting around the dining room table all together. We may be at work, at school, on vacation, on a trip, taking care of mom, whatever the case may be. So having a plan, knowing that there's a go bag, a meeting place, an out-of-state contact, something you can do in those cases empowers them to go, okay, I know what I can do. They can take action. And in general, everyone will feel much better that way.
All right, thank you. Great advice. So a couple of really practical questions here. Number one, what is the best spot to store your go bags?
I believe in keeping some supplies in any place that I tend to hang out. So I have a bag in my car. I have some supplies at work. I have, when my daughters were in high school, they kept some supplies in their locker. But your go bag, for example, is probably going to be in the front closet or in your car is where you'd have your go bag. And again, that's that quick grab and go situation. Your kit, your major kit is going to be, in a pantry, in a closet, wherever it is that you keep it at home. And chances are you already have half to 3/4 of the supplies that you really need for a kit already. It's just a matter of organizing it into one place and everyone in the family knowing what we have and what the plan is.
All right.
You're also going to want to move your kit. Like if you might keep it in your family room, in your laundry room, someplace by your door. But when you get a red flag warning or a evacuation warning, then you're going to want to put it by your door. Or if you have an evacuation warning, you're probably going to want to put it in your car.
All right. Thank you, Barbara and Sandra. Here's a related question. I know a lot of us have been seeing pictures of cars in the South Tahoe area. The question is, what is an alternative plan if there's gridlock and leaving by car doesn't seem like an option?
Barbara mentioned the story of her fellow Red Cross volunteer who's prepared to evacuate on foot or on a bicycle. You have to be flexible, having as much flexibility as you can, which is why the go bag is something you need to be able to carry. Everybody needs to be able to carry their own because you may end up on foot.
Yeah, I think the other thing is that most of us tend to procrastinate. And when you don't have to wait until you're under a mandatory evacuation to evacuate. If you're prepared and you get an evacuation warning and you leave then, okay, maybe sometimes you didn't have to actually leave, but you're going to get out before all the rest of the traffic. And so you're not going to get stuck in that long lineup to get out of there. And if you have thought through a couple of alternative routes, you might be able to go a different way than everybody else does. But if you wait until the last minute, I'm not sure that there is much of an alternative to getting stuck behind with everybody else.
All right. Here we have a couple of practical questions, especially from parents. What do you do if there's an emergency and you're all in different places? Kids at 2 different schools, parents at work. What do you do then? Pets at home. How do you make a plan for that? Do you set a meeting place, or what do you suggest?
You should have actually 2 meeting places. So you should have a primary meeting place that should be part of your plan. And then you should have a backup meeting place in case that meeting place doesn't work. And you are more than likely, unless it happens in the middle of the night, to have people in different places when a disaster strikes. So, if you know where you're all going to meet, and like Sandra said, if you have an outside contact who you can all get in touch with too, then that's very helpful.
Remember that the alerting systems that we talked about, each county has one. Many college campuses have them. So, I would be enrolled in, my counties, with the county in which I work, the county in which I have family, and my daughter's college campus, for example. So I would get information from all those sources. But yes, in terms of, no, you're not going to all be together. So the other thing to know is if you have school-age children, you should be familiar with what your school's emergency plan is. It is very likely, depending on the situation, that you may not be able to get to their school in the next few hours, let alone a day. It may take a while. The school should have a plan for what will happen if parents can't get there, and it will make you feel much better knowing what that plan is.
And parents, that would involve the school caring for your children until you can get there. They're not going to be left outside without supervision, just to mention. Here's a practical question for people who are putting together go bags on a budget. Are there things from the dollar store that you can buy that can go in a go bag?
I can answer that one because I've actually been out on a Red Cross deployment and had a little break and entertained myself by going to the dollar store. And I found all kinds of nifty things that worked. You know, little teeny flashlights. It's so easy to lose stuff when you're in a situation like when I'm on a Red Cross assignment or if you ended up in a shelter. And so I actually have a lanyard that I wear around my neck, and I like to hook like sometimes my car keys to it. So, you know, you can buy these little things in the dollar store. Yeah, there are lots of things that you could find in the dollar store. I think they also sell those little glow sticks that you can break and stuff. So yeah, good idea, the dollar store.
Dollar store is a wonderful thing. And garbage bags, wet wipes. These are all things that are extremely handy. My garbage bag can be a poncho in the rain. It can carry, you know, your dirty laundry. It can be for hygiene of many different ways. So we're a big believer in garbage bags. They're very small and easy to, you know, fold up, compact, throw them in, throw a few of those into your go bag as well as your main kit. And yeah, the dollar stores are really great resources for a lot of different things.
Okay, this is a comment from our friend Gregory Schmidt, who notes that the recommendation is 1 gallon of water per person per day. Are there ways to purify water in case you don't have 7 to 10 days of water in your home? He asks. Good question. Oh, he also recommends whistles and mini flashlights from the dollar store.
Yep.
Agreed. So water, 1 gallon per person per day is the minimum that's recommended. I want you to take a moment and think about how much water you've used today. Did you make coffee this morning? Did you take a shower? Did you brush your teeth? Did you drink some water, as we all should have? You know, did you cook? How much water do you use in a day? And is a gallon going to be enough? So you decide, and you decide how much water you can store in your residence or that you can get access to. It doesn't have to be in your house necessarily. And yes, you can purify water using bleach. You want to have unscented bleach as part of your kit at home. And I believe it's 6 drops per gallon. Correct me if I'm wrong, Barbara. 6 to 8 drops per gallon, and then stir it up and let it sit for a while. And that is now one way of purifying your water.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the technicalities of it, but that is what I would think, is that you can purify water with bleach. Also, if you think about it, like if you have kids who play soccer, you may well have one of those great big water holding jugs. There are a lot of different things that you can store water in. It's also been suggested that if you get a warning, I guess this might apply more to places where there's hurricanes, which we don't have, but if you get a warning, you can always stopper up your bathtub and fill it up with water, and then you'll have quite a big supply of water that could last you a while.
It's a great idea. So I just want to remind everybody, especially those who came in later, that there are a lot of good links and resources in the chat. People have been adding good comments about what's available, like at the dollar store, but we have links from the Sequoia Healthcare District, the Green Folder, which is an emergency preparedness document, information from the San Mateo County of Education. So do check the chat before you go, but right now is the time for the raffle. Stay with us. You have to be present to win. Jenny, are you here?
I'm here and I'm ready to spin the wheel. So I have everyone's name entered on this wheel, and I'm going to spin for the first prize.
And those of you who are joining us late, this prize is for a, Jenny, tell us.
It's for a Red Cross donated go bag. And Jelly B, you're the winner of one go bag. If you could stay on for a little bit, we'll get your contact information, and that way we can arrange for you to come and get the go bag. Okay, let's go with another spin.
And Angeli, if you could put in the chat that you're here, that would help us know that you're a present winner.
I saw her name come across, so I know she's hanging around somewhere. Kaiva N, if you can indicate that you're here. I did not see your name earlier, so.
And Jenny, somebody loves your wheel. Can you mention the app? It's awfully cool.
Oh, it's wheelofnames.com.
I've been
So
calling
if-
it Wheel of Fortune, but that's not it.
Yes. So if Kava, I'm probably not pronouncing it right. If you're not here, or if you are here, please indicate you're here, because if you're not here, I get to respin again for prize number 2. Okay, I'm going once, going twice. I'm going to respin the wheel. Congratulations, Martin. Martin, if you are here, please indicate your presence in the chat. If you are not here, I will respin again. Okay, I'm going to respin again.
So exciting.
Oh, Martin S is here. Okay, great.
Yay.
So Martin, you got bag number 2. Lucretia, if you are here, please indicate in the chat that you are here so we can give you bag number 3. This is our 3rd and last prize of the evening. Going once, going twice. Okay, all you have one more chance to win this exciting prize. Judy, you are the winner. Please indicate in the chat if you are here. If not, I will respin.
Paul M.
Paul M, reveal yourself.
I know a Paul M if it's the same Paul M, Jenny.
But are they here though? That's the thing.
Yes. Paul M.
Raise your hand. Okay, this is going to be my last spin.
Okay.
We may only end up with 2 giveaways, and that'll mean more bags for the next town hall. Kathy P. This is the last spin of the evening. Okay, if you can, the winners, if you can stick around, and I will let you know how to get in touch with us so we can give you the backpacks. That'll be great. And everyone else, thank you for participating in the town hall and the raffle.
Thank you, Jenny. That was fantastic. I want to remind everyone that this event has been recorded. It's very important to watch it probably again with spouse, children, partners, whoever you might have. And for a few last words, I'm going to give you back to Pamela Kurtzman, CEO of Sequoia Healthcare District.
And I've just got a few seconds, but I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. I think, yeah, it's well worth watching several times. I want to thank our host, Charlene Marco, Bev, and our Spanish interpreter, and for thanking our staff and Jenny. That was a really fun wheel. Thank you for the donation of the go bags, Barbara, and Red Cross. And I want to let everybody know that we have another town hall to continue this conversation on September 14th from 6 to 7 p.m. We are expecting a really exciting lineup, but will confirm that. You can find out more information on our website, as I mentioned earlier. Again, really important to know your zone, get on and SMC alert. And you can always reach out to staff here at the district or to Barbara or Sandra had shared their information. Again, thank you for joining this really important topic, because we want to not only keep our residents healthy and well, but also safe. So have a good night, and hopefully see you on the 14th of September. Okay, good night, everyone.
Pamela, thank you, Sandra, and thank you, Barbara. Panelists, if you could stay with us for a few minutes, everybody else, thank you. Have a good evening. Take care and go make your go bags.